So it turns out PlayStation released their financials, and even with the failure that was Concord, it looks like they're doing really well. PlayStation as a brand is actually doing much better than I expected. And there's all of these little stories popping up. So I follow this guy on Twitter. His name is Dom's Playing, and Dom's Playing broke it down for us very clearly, very succinctly in terms of what has been happening over at PlayStation. So for Q2, PlayStation revenue went up 12% to $7.2 billion. Operating profit almost tripled to $929 million. Imagine if they hadn't messed with Concord. Imagine they didn't get their hand caught in the cookie jar with rushing Concord out the door. And I believe I have some quotes brought up about how they saw that as a big miss. This is huge for PlayStation. And you have to remember, Black Myth Wukong was so big for them that you couldn't get a PlayStation 5 in Japan, and I'm pretty sure they were sold out in China also. So it was a massive driver of sales for their hardware and software also, because anybody who had a PlayStation 5 basically bought that game because of the hype around it. Monthly active users are up 8% to 116 million monthly active users. Total playtime is up 14%. They gained 18% in PlayStation Plus sales. Software units up 17% to 77.7 million, 70% digital compared to 67%, and Astrobot sold over 1.5 million copies for launch. Look, I'm very hard on PlayStation. These numbers are undeniably fantastic for them. At a time, they haven't done anything. They got a third-party exclusive, and they released the console that is ridiculously expensive. The only thing that I would say about the Pro is that it's prohibitively expensive, but everybody bought it anyway. And the problem with that is that PlayStation now knows they're going to buy these things at this price point. Like, they're not risk averse to a price of $700, which is a bit interesting to hear from them. I know the crop is weird. He just attached his slides. It's like increase, decrease in sales of hardware due to decrease in unit sales. So they are selling less hardware currently. This is for Q2 year over year. And they had a negative impact of decrease in sales of first-party software game titles, but that's largely because they literally didn't release any first-party games in this quarter for 2024. So the fact that this is like the Hellblade Ninja Theory stuff. When Hellblade released, that they made like millions of dollars in profit, and they didn't have any games, like it was before Hellblade came out, and it was because they're just doing a lot of things that are smart, as opposed to just a few things that tremendously flopped. And then to go a little bit further, there was a comment about Concord. A lot of people were talking about, okay, well, Concord's probably going to have a negative net effect on the PlayStation unit sales or whatever. Let's talk about that a little bit, because Genki Japan, who covers a lot of the PlayStation stuff and stuff out of Japan, said the following. Sony president, COO, and CFO Hiroki Totoki says PlayStation needs to have more detailed checks and gates, such as more user tests, to prevent situations like Concord happening again. We need to repeat those gates more so that we could have caught and determine whether that will be accepted by the users or not. We need to have more information that will enable us to make more sound decisions. Looking back on the past, I think we need to go back to the basics and make it really stronger. I don't know what happened with Concord, but I really, really feel like a lot of the mistakes with that game could have been avoided if they did larger focus testing and really took the feedback to heart, as opposed to putting on your blinders and just moving forward without getting any of that feedback. Or the people who they got to give feedback just didn't give actionable feedback for them. And unfortunately, the studio's gone now. They're like totally closed. And as somebody that played it for a while, I could have at least addressed the movement criticisms and the design criticisms, the idea of launching at $40. I've seen the stories where they said like, this needs to be our Star Wars. I'm just like, you need to somebody needed to tell them to rein it in. It definitely felt like you need somebody on your team who you're willing to hear feedback from. And if you don't try to hear the feedback, even when it's hard to hear, you're going to fail. And that's what happened. And it's really unfortunate because I think there were a lot of talented people in that studio. Like, it's old Halo people. And there were a lot of the Destiny roots in Concord, but it didn't work. Clay says, I feel like Fair Games is done. I hope to hell they are looking at Fair Games very closely, because they could very easily slip into the sort of same framework that Concord did, where it doesn't resonate with people the way that they thought. Have a focus test with random people, not just like anybody from around the neighborhood. You got to go all over and ask them, how do you feel about the setting? How do you feel about the story? Do you feel motivated given what we've shown you this far about the characters and their desire to steal from the rich and give to the poor, I think is the concept of Fair Games. Does the gameplay feel good? Is this going to stand out for you? Would you play the game again? Like, these are the sort of questions that you need to be considering as a studio. And like, really, I think in the AAA space, at least right now, for better or for worse, you need to be looking at your game and saying, how do we appeal to the most people we possibly can? Long story short about PlayStation, though, they're crushing it. And honestly, I've really, really softened on my negativity towards PlayStation because of one simple reason. Jim Ryan's gone. I need time to see what the new leadership does to have an opinion about their leadership. I watched Jim Ryan. I know what Jim Ryan did. I watched him fly all around the world and talk about how Call of Duty like would kill PlayStation or whatever, and try and stop the Xbox deal, which went through anyway. And, you know, and greenlight 12 live service games. I was not happy with Jim Ryan's leadership, but under Herman Hulst, and I can never remember the other guy's name, the lead on tech, the 2 CEO strategy. I think I need more time to see where we end up landing. And a lot of the stuff coming out this year has been from Jim Ryan. This was like greenlit from Jim Ryan. Hearing that they're not going to do more kill zones is a bummer. Hearing that Concord was a big push from Herman Hulst is just like, if that's your radar, then maybe your radar needs to be tuned in a little bit, so to speak. So before I miss it, I actually wanted to talk about how the PlayStation 5 Pro price has not had a negative impact on sales, says Sony boss. Hardware users are the target of this hardware. This is from Eurogamer. One thing about that, though, I do think that is a little problematic in terms of what we can expect in the future. The fact that it seems to have that same sell-through that I imagine the PlayStation 4 Pro had means we better get used to paying an updated premium for the games that we play. Sony says that despite the different comments on the PlayStation 5 Pro's chunky price point, the pricing has not had a negative impact on sales. That was from Genki Japan. who I quoted earlier. Hardcore users are the target of this device, Toki said. In terms of the pricing, many people made different comments on that, but pricing on the PS5 Pro has not had a negative impact. And there is the full quote right here. Let's just go over to Genki Japan. In terms of pricing, many people made different comments on that, but pricing on the PS5 Pro has not had a negative impact, I don't think. That's not good. That means that, well, all of us bemoan the price point, people still bought it. And what happened with microtransactions, they're just a standard thing. People don't even bat an eye about microtransactions being in the game, so we can make fun of them all we want and say how we don't like them, but everybody spends money on them anyway. So here we are, right? Modern day, where game development requires microtransactions of some sort so that they can warrant the cost of their console being manufactured or their game being manufactured. And I think that's problematic. I think it means we're going to get more expensive things in the near future. And then there was a comment about the exclusives going forward on PlayStation. Sony Interactive Entertainment Chairman Hiroki Totoki: we plan to continue releasing major single-player game titles every year from next fiscal year onwards. Next fiscal year begins April 1st, 2025. SIE has previously announced Death Stranding 2 and Ghosts of Yotei for 2025. That means we're back on that PlayStation exclusive train. That's good news, honestly. And I've seen all the comments about Ghosts of Yotei. I did a ton of research for a piece I'm very proud of over on IGN about the historical nature and the historical influences that I think Ghosts of Yotei is going to lean on. I am incredibly excited about that game. That's 2 PlayStation exclusives plus Grand Theft Auto 6 next year. I think next year is going to be not only a massive year for gaming, I think it's going to be an even stronger year for PlayStation. PlayStation this year had nothing, and they're boasting massive revenue gains year over year. So I'm quite interested and excited of seeing what comes next year. And Xbox is going to have a fire year too. I think Fable's confirmed for next year. Doom is confirmed for next year. Like, we are returning to form. And I'm going to say that as much as I possibly can in all of these streams, just because I think it's funny. We are returning to form, and we are going to get a lot of those classic great games once again. And that's great. It's absolutely great news. I really appreciate you all. Thank you so much. While I have you, if you do like the content, feel free to hit that subscribe button, hit that bell. It does help the channel. Hit that like button if you like the video. I do really appreciate it. Thank you so much to all of the members. I do have to update this list for a bit because Aries dropped 10 more memberships. Thank you so much, Aries. If you want to become a member and support what I'm doing here, you can click that join button right on the bottom. I appreciate the heck out of y'all. And I worked really hard on my PlayStation 5 Pro unboxing. So if you would go check that out when I do the VOD, I'm going to put it over here. So go watch me unbox it. I put a lot of work into it. Did it in my own time. So check it out. Thank you so much, everybody. And I'll see you for the next stream, the next video. Bye for now.